Hello there and welcome to the Home Tech Podcast. Jason Griffin here. So happy to have you with us. This is a special episode we're excited to present to you. I'm joined by Chris Gamble of Live Install, and as a listener to the show, you may be aware that Chris is our new UK-based correspondent. We're excited to be working with him and bringing him on periodically to check in on what's going on overseas. And so we don't just keep a focus on the United States, but we want to have that international coverage as well. And Chris has kindly agreed to help us out with that. And this is a perfect time to hit on that because ISE just wrapped up, and we wanted to get Chris on to share his thoughts. He was able to attend the show and saw some interesting products out there. The time zones being what they are, we were having a little bit of trouble scheduling, so you'll notice that Seth has not joined us for this episode. It was just me and Chris. And without further ado, I look forward to sharing our conversation. Let's jump right in. Hey, Chris, welcome back to Home Tech. How are you?
Hi, Jason. Yeah, I'm very well. How's things with you?
Very good. Very good. Happy to be sitting down with you here and welcoming you back from ISE. How was the show? Did you have a good time out there?
Yeah, the show is now a week ago. It feels like a long time, but the show was fantastic. For me, it was the best one that I've attended so far.
And how many of these have you attended so far?
I would call myself quite a new visitor to the show. This was our third.
Gotcha. Well, that's a decent sample size, enough to give you an idea for what the show is all about, and glad to hear you had a good time out there. I know personally I really enjoy going to trade shows. I think they're a lot of fun, and I always come back feeling a little bit energized, tired from all the events, but energized all the same in the sense of getting excited again about what I do and just seeing all the new stuff that's coming out and reconnecting with old friends. So I'm glad to hear you had a good time. Tell us kind of the overview again. Remind us what you did out there, kind of how long you stayed, and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I did a 48-hour trip to Amsterdam. The first day was taken up completely by training. We undertook some training that was provided by CEDIA. So as the show was going on around us, I didn't see a lot of it. Day two was the day where I got round the show very quickly, had a long list of people I wished to see, and did actually manage to tick them all off, which I'm really glad of.
I'm impressed. I always go to CEDIA with a list, and I'll be out there for 3 or 4 days and still feel like I didn't get to all of them. So it sounds like you're able to stay productive out there, and that's always a good thing. Tell us about the training. I know we alluded to it a little bit when we had you on a couple of weeks ago, and let us know what the purpose of the training was and what your thoughts on it were.
Yeah, as I said, the training was hosted by CEDIA, and it was centered around presenting the design of smart homes to architects and interior designers. It's something it's vital to any smart home installation business to be able to reach out to the design professionals who are responsible for creating these homes that we all work in. And if we can reach out to them, introduce ourselves, get to know them regionally, that we're a local expert in home technology. So the course centered around, it wasn't too technical. It was very much an overview for the designers to understand that we're a key part now in construction, and we should be brought into projects early to work with understanding the needs of the customer and the building. And the course lasted a whole day. There was some presenting practice, which was really good to take you out of your comfort zone to do a presentation to your peers.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I enjoyed that, and the feedback from the others in the course, who primarily were all UK-based installers, because the content does lend itself more to the UK market. I'm not sure, is there an equivalent to this in the US?
To be honest, it's funny you ask that because George, my boss and owner of the company I work for, and I were just talking about this earlier this week, and I don't know the answer. The short answer is I'm not sure, but I do know that as part of my capacity as a director of business development at our company, is I'm constantly doing outreach to designers and architects, and a big part of what we do is we'll bring in somebody from, say, Savant or Lutron that has a course that they can give that's authorized essentially to allow architects to earn continuing education credits or CEUs. And that's a big deal. It's a great way to open doors because architects, they need to maintain every year a certain number of those CEUs. And so if we're able to provide a little bit of value giving back, then that's a great thing to do. But it is something that I've been meaning to research a little bit because, like I said, currently the way that we're able to provide that value is by bringing in somebody else from, again, Lutron or Savant, et cetera. And I would love the ability to go in myself and be able to give a course similar to the one you're describing, where we just give an overview of home technology, what it is, why it's important, how do you plan for it. And it sounds really like, if I'm understanding you correctly, that was the course that you took and the gist of it. And I'd love the opportunity to do the same thing. So great question, and gives me a little bit of homework to follow up on after the episode.
Yeah, the courses that I attended was very, very structured, and I think that's attractive to the design professionals, that they're getting a presentation that's endorsed heavily by a trade body that's working with their own trade body. So I think that's important to the audience.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I have to imagine that we've got a similar thing here in the States, and I think it's really vital. I'd be curious to hear your thoughts. I don't know how much of that direct outreach to the architecture and design community, that you've been doing in the past, but what's been your experience if you have done it? Have the architects and the design, has that community been receptive? Because here we generally get a very good response, and people seem eager to learn more about it.
Yeah, the response is good. We've as a business, we've done our own in-house presentations. The response has been good. It's always led to a project, but it's something that you need to prove yourself over a long period of time to gain the trust of these design professionals. And I think now going in front of them with industry endorsements alongside our history already, I think that's going to be good going forward.
Yeah, I could see that lends a little bit of credibility, and at that point you're something more than just kind of self-interested party presenting some ideas to them, and it gives you a little bit of credibility. And keep us posted. I'll be curious to hear, now that you've taken this course and you kind of have this credibility behind you, how the response changes and how you feel it serves you in terms of being a business tool. I'll be anxious to hear a little bit more about that. Let's get into talking about the show floor. Obviously, that's the big deal at ISE, and what, as sitting here watching from afar, what I'm trying to pay attention to. And this year I've been really excited to have you on afterwards as somebody who is there directly. So let's start with a couple of the specific maybe products or services that you saw on the floor that got you excited about. And we did do a little bit of preparation off air before this. And so I'll try to break these questions down for you into some of the smaller categories. And it looks like in particular, you went out there and saw a number of software programs that you wanted to talk about. And I'll let you jump in there and let us know your thoughts.
Yeah, high on my list this year was to speak to other service providers or providers that we could outsource some business tasks to. One company we spent a lot of time with was a UK-based company called Design Flow. It's a small design practice based in London who huge experience, international experience of home technology install. They use D-Tools as their default design software. But what they're able to bring to any project you're involved in is that standardized presentation of the design, the wiring schematics, the rack layouts. And even before that, they'll work with you on the proposals for the larger projects that need that X factor for your business to win, which could be the biggest contract of the year, or so yeah. It was great to spend time with Keith and Kelly, the owners of the business, to understand what they could offer.
Sure. Yeah. Sounds like a great business model. I know I can think of a couple companies here in the States that offer similar services. And like you said, it's definitely important, particularly if you're a small company and you don't want to allocate those resources necessarily to bringing a full-time engineer on, because most of the time it may not be necessary. But like you said, there are those big projects out there and kind of the crown jewels, right, that you're really going after, and you want to be able to be in the running for those. And a lot of times you really just need that extra push in the engineering and documentation, and companies like that can provide those services on an outsourced and contract basis, I think are very, very valuable. What else did you see out there?
Yeah, one other software provider another UK based.
I love the bell, and I love the bell in the background. It's very.
You'd think I was standing at Big Ben, or
it's giving our show a nice international flair. It's great.
Sound like you've gone back to like Dickens' time or something. Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
That's cool. Yeah, we met with another UK-based business called My Project Q. The person behind that business is somebody with a long history in the UK custom install market, Matt Dodd. And he came up with his own system for that early stage quotation or early stage needs analysis, when a lot of the time customers or potential customers just want, give me a price, give me a rough idea of what I'm going to spend. And that can sometimes take 2 or 3 hours. Now, it doesn't sound a lot, but if you're doing 10 or 15 of those a week, it might not even be possible to fit them all in. Never mind, do them. So they've come up with a tablet-based, smartphone-based app that can take that down to as little as 15 minutes to deal with those early contacts with new inquiries. So that was interesting because we do get a lot of inquiries that don't always come to fruition, but if we can deal with them in a timely manner and get something that's nicely presented, it still gives off a good vibe about our business. So that is one that we've taken advantage of the free trial, and we're going to look at that over the next couple of weeks.
And do you know, Chris, I'm curious, I'm looking at their website right now. It does look like they have operations here in the States, and I'm a little bit surprised. I've never heard of them. Are they, to your knowledge, a company that focuses squarely on our industry, or is our industry just one part of what they do? I'm just curious to know a little bit more.
I get the impression they're firmly focused on the residential home technology market. That's where the owner's background is. It could lend itself to others, but yeah, I think it is definitely on residential.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. And like I said, I was just a little bit surprised that I haven't heard of them before. Looking at their website right now, and definitely sounds like a company I'll have to check out. I think just like design flow, we talked about how useful that could be, and something like this is really useful as well to have in-house, because again, it really comes down to having that full-time engineer on staff, and for a lot of us in the industry, that is the business owner, or maybe you've got one or two other people working in the company, and so resources can be very tight. And I agree, I deal with it all the time. Part of my job as in the business development realm is to do proposals and more of a pure sales role, because we are a small company and we have to wear numerous hats. And I know from direct experience that a lot of times we really just need an accurate tool to spit out a quick quote, but make sure that we're doing it scientifically, so to speak, and we're not just kind of guessing and pulling numbers out of the air. And I'd be curious to learn more about that company. I know you had Jet Built was on your radar as well. Did you get a chance to go chat with those guys?
Yeah, I had a really good time on their stand. I didn't even look at the product. I just spoke to the people behind the business, and I found that really useful. It was towards the end of the day, and I was kind of flagging a little bit, but I ended up just chilling out on their stand for 15 minutes, spoke to this really interesting guy called Seth Rubenstein, who I've since found out is quite a prominent member of the
I know the name.
Market. Yeah, so we just had a little bit of a Indian session. We got to know each other, and I'm going to look further at that at the Jet Built system closer in my own time. But what I did take away was, if there's one business there that understands what I do, it was them.
Interesting. Yeah. It's great feedback. I really think that that's very important. And working in the technology business, there are so many options often that we can choose to solve the same problem. And there can be half a dozen different tools to do that. And I do think that a lot of times it really comes down to the people behind the products and people that understand the culture and the inherent challenges with what we do, and people that we can relate with on a personal level are often the best to work with when you're really comparing products. I think that's great feedback, and I'm happy to hear that. I actually, to be honest, didn't realize that Seth was involved with JetBuilt, and that intrigues me because I know his name very well, and he is, like you said, a prominent player in the market, and definitely makes me want to look at the product a little bit closer. What else? I know you talked to, and I'm still not sure how to pronounce this. Maybe you can give me some clarity. Is it Domots?
I would say Domots.
Domots.
Yeah.
Okay. And I know you got a chance to chat with them. Tell me about that.
Yeah, this was something that's led from your own HomeTech podcast Slack forum. One of the members in there, Mark Childs, brought it to all of our attention, and got to speak to them to the show. So a really great looking user interface. Saw that they had quite a large team working on this. It didn't seem like a small operation, which is maybe some preconception I had. It looks like they're really going deep on what's needed when you're remotely viewing a property. And the product they were offering was software that could run on either a network hard drive or a local device in the home. Sees the network, allows you to do diagnostics specific to device, maybe speed test the network. You can see multiple sites in a certain map format where you could maybe see a site that's got an issue and you can drill down into that site. So I think the price point attracted me, that it's a device that we could incorporate into maintenance contracts, leave it attached to the network, and it just gives us an easy way to dip in and out of that property if on request of the client, or if we were doing any proactive maintenance.
Sure.
It did remind me, obviously, of ISE, which is the kind of poster boy for remote viewing of customers' systems. I did get to speak to them briefly, although they were very in demand on the Control4 stand. But what?
Interesting. So did they actually teamed up with Control4 in a sense, in terms of how they were displaying?
Control4 had a really almost like a community-based stand. There was maybe 8 or 10 different brands, Lilin IP cameras, Yale smart locks, IHG, and others. I can't recall them all, but the vibe I got from their stand was it was a destination to come and relax, take your time. You're going to see lots of products, so hang out here for a minute, come back, go over here. You could probably come back and forth to Control4 stand maybe 7 or 8 times in the course of one day. So
I'm sure they would be happy to hear you say that.
Yeah. I'm not a Control4 dealer, but I really like the vibe around the stand. It's something that it could become the norm on other stands in the future, because you're seeing companies work with so many brands now that you can't really see it all in one visit. You may have to step away from the stand, let that soak in what you've seen, and then come back. Right, give me a little bit more now, so you can, and then piece it together. When you're reviewing, on your flight home or sat in departures in the airport, I think that there's a lot to take in at these shows, and if you can break it up,
it can be overwhelming. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I go into these shows typically with a small notepad in hand, and I take a lot of notes. I don't see many other people doing that, but I really like to write things down and try not to overthink what I'm seeing. And if I think something is worth writing down, I try not to overthink that. I just jot down a quick note, because really I found that, as like you said, on the flight home is where oftentimes I'm flipping through those notes, and that's really where things kind of strike me when I'm out of the noise of the show and I'm able to just sit down and kind of focus on what it was I saw. And that's when I really feel like I pick up on some of the themes and some of the really important products or stories that came away from the show. I think I'm excited to dive in more in the future to learn about these remote monitoring tools. We are currently here at our business in Denver deploying IHEG, and it's a product that I'm very excited about. And I know the folks at Domots, and again, sorry if I'm mispronouncing that, but you were able to link me up with them via email, and we've already exchanged a couple of emails and are hoping to have them on this spring and really look forward to exploring that product. I think that these tools that allow us to remotely monitor and manage systems are very much the future of our industry, and it's a general theme or story that I get very excited about. We kind of alluded to Control 4. I think you had a couple other notes that you saw and things that you thought were worth sharing about Control 4. Tell us about that.
Yeah, the big one for me was the introduction of their UK or European style keypads. Same keypad button layout, but in a UK shaped faceplate. And talking to other live installers, they were getting a big kick out of that. They could see that this is going to be a huge attraction for their customers because, as great as the keypads look, they still looked American. So if you're putting them in front of a UK client, they do look different. So I think that's a great reaction to probably it's been demanded, I guess, from UK and European.
I would have to imagine, yeah.
It has to be. And they also always face a lot of competition from, and you always talk about it on the show, the European keypads, the KNX keypads that are in a familiar shape. So
yeah, it's interesting because the design community, I think they look cool and I like them, but I'm just always interested because the design community here in the States is always very keen to look at things when you say they're European. It's kind of a funny thing about Americans, and I don't know why that is. I've never bothered to give it too much thought, but some of those things, Basalt comes up as an example, that obviously a very high-end product and cost prohibitive for most projects, but the high-end designers and architects that I've shown that product to all love it. And I think that square sort of form factor is something that's very appealing to people here in the States. And I was interested to see Control 4 embracing that.
Yeah, I think their dealers in the UK would say it's long overdue. So I think that created a bit of a buzz, because I don't think it was something that was promoted pre-show, or if it was
I don't think so
to
either.
The show launching. Yeah. I also got the chance to speak to Jane Scotland, who formerly Extra Vegetables, now Control 4, working on their software and drivers and integration, and she gave me a run through of their operating system, showed me it on the big screen. The apps just looked great, the access to apps running on media devices connected to the system. It just looked like a really nice smart TV layout, within your Control 4 operating system. So that was attractive, and Jane gave me a really good run through that, and she probably would have been directly heavily involved with that. So
very cool. Very cool. Well, moving on from Control 4, I know automated window treatments are a category that I'm always excited to sell and talk about. It's a big part of our business, and something that I feel delivers a lot of value to our clients in the design community. You had a note that we had been talking about, and you were able to visit the folks at Q Motion. So let us know what you were able to gather from that visit.
Yeah, Q Motion are a new company we've started working with sort of middle of last year. We were looking for a retrofit solution for motorized blinds. Spent a little bit of time on their stand, sort of tail end of day 2. Spoke to our rep in the UK, and he showed us their new retrofit blinds, but with two-way communication with Zigbee, which still in a wire-free format, battery-powered blinds. We're going to jump back to Control 4 here. He just used that system as an example of you're going to get things like the status of the blind, feedback on the position. Just the integration is so much more enhanced now, having that Zigbee communication built in.
Yep. That's great. I've heard more and more about QMotion. I know they were recently acquired, I believe, by Legrand, if I'm recalling that correctly. And so seemingly a company with some momentum. We are Lutron through and through here for automated window treatments, but I know having more options in the market is a good thing, and having that competition really drives innovation. And I think in general, battery-powered shades and retrofit solutions in that market are fantastic, and something, again, that I really enjoy selling, and I'm glad to see continued innovation happening in that category. The next company that we wanted to jump to here is another one actually that we sell here in Denver, and it's Luxel. I know you were able to visit them, and the network is such a key part of what we do as systems integrators, so I'm very curious to hear your thoughts on what you saw at Luxel.
Yeah, I was obviously impressed by their product lineup. They've got a great range of everything that you would have in the rack, or your either unmanaged or managed switches, offering non-powered or PoE versions. Their access points looked built for the apocalypse. They had huge heat sinks in them. They were,
love that.
In comparison to our Unified products that we're using currently, they just felt like
the world could end. You'll still have Wi-Fi,
and that would be the only thing hanging from the ceiling. Yeah. So
that's great.
Really impressed with that, and I did see the Luxol brand littered around the stand on other people's stands. If it was a HDMI over IP product, they had Luxol. If it was a company showing off nothing relating to networks, but they had a rack, there was a Luxol switch inside it. So it shows that the industry is also using that brand a lot. One thing that
I'm glad you. Oh, go ahead. Didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
One thing that I just felt they were lacking a little bit was a nice user interface, like a remote management app or tool. I just feel that if that can come later this year, I think that would be a good addition to me as the installer, that I can maybe just use a smartphone app to see the status of customers' projects, which we can get from other vendors. So,
yeah, it's a great point. I think it's something Luxel needs to take a look at. I know, circling back to the point you made before, because of the two really, in my mind, tie together, is when I was out at CEDIA this year, I noticed the same thing, and Luxel really appeared to have a presence at multiple booths that weren't the Luxel booth. And so I thought that was interesting, and I think what it speaks to is the fact, we were talking earlier when we were talking about JetBuilt, about the fact that we really like to work with companies that understand our industry, and people that have potentially come from the same background and maybe faced some of the same challenges are typically the best ones to work with. And I feel like Luxel really gets it. And that's one of the reasons that we have chosen to go with Luxel right now as our default network product, is because we feel like they understand our industry. They tailor their products to the challenges that we face. The support is there when we need it. I do think, to your point, maybe some more visibility on the cloud management side might be a good thing. I know specifically, though, speaking to that point, one of the companies that I was curious and I shouldn't say curious, but excited to see Luxel working with when I saw them out at CEDIA was IHG, and they appear to be working closely with IHG. I don't know how far along they are in those conversations. We're pretty new to IHG, and so we're still getting used to the platform. But I'm excited to put those two together and see what they can do. And who knows, maybe some of the resources that Luxel could have potentially put towards building their own cloud monitoring solution, maybe they pour that into working closer with IHG. Who knows? Apples and oranges a little bit there. But to your point, again, they do seem like a company that's being very aggressive about reaching out and trying to work with other companies. I do know at least one other big name in the industry that I'm not free to speak about, but I know directly that they are reaching out to them and trying to build bridges there. And so it's exciting. And I think Luxel is a company that really gets it, and I hope they continue to drive that innovation and drive, building those bridges with other companies in our industry. I think we had one more specific product or technology, I guess I should say, that we wanted to touch on, and it's a big one with 4K and everything that's going on with video distribution, and that was HD base T. Sounds like you saw a lot of that going on out there, so tell us about that.
Yeah, very difficult to avoid. HD base T is still, in a lot of projects, the highest ticket item on the job list. So those manufacturers were out in force, whether it was HD base T as an alliance, had a really great stand with multiple vendors on it. And you also had your standalone exhibitors showing off their latest matrices or their extender sets or showing HDMI over IP. I said hello to all the UK companies because there's 3 or 4 of sort of prominent brands in the UK. HD Anywhere, who Chris Pinder's been on the show with you guys. They were showing off their M-Hub range. They were showing off a new app, which is their own app to do the control and the switching of sources. Pulse 8, maybe a brand you're not aware of, but I noticed they've attracted some press on CE Pro this week because they've been improving and maybe not pioneering, but they've been heavily using HDMI CEC to control the switching and the sources. So that means,
interesting.
Yeah, you can use your regular television remote control to control the Apple TV, the set-top box, the Blu-ray player, and switch the matrix from, source 1 to 4, etc. So
very curious to know how that works out. If there's anybody listening who's had any experience or has any in the future, I don't know how far along these guys are. I have to be honest, I haven't heard of them before, but I know it's interesting to me because CEC, by and large, to date at least, has been a term that kind of makes me cringe a little bit, and I think it's been based on my experience.
Turn it off.
Yeah. It's one of the first things we shut off, and maybe it's just because it conflicts with the other control that we're trying to do, and maybe in its own right it's not so bad, but I am curious to see a new company trying to sort of plant their flag on that, because again, it is a technology that I have to imagine I'm not alone. I think there's a lot of integrators out there that hear CEC, and like you said, the first thing they think about is, well, that's like the first thing I shut off, right?
Yeah, that might be the hurdle they have to overcome is gaining the confidence of install professionals to start using that. I have used it with another brand, HD Anywhere's modular system, use CEC, but we only really got to see it switching the matrix. We didn't get to use it to control sources. So I've seen a little bit of it, but I know that Martin, who's the managing director at Pulse 8, he's heavily involved with the CEC standard, or whatever council sit to work on that. He's involved in that. So and it's not a new standard, so it has been around a long time. No,
it's definitely not.
I've seen displays have it for must be close to a decade, I would imagine. So yeah, that's something to watch, and there is some content on CE Pro about it, which I read this week.
I'll have to check that out. I think there was one other name I was curious to hear your thoughts on. You put a little teaser in our notes here about a company called SY Electronics, SY Electronics. Tell us about that.
Yeah, SY is a company that we got to know through social media, and we met them at ISE last year. They've got some really robust HDMI distribution solutions. It's rock solid. These are products that are used in stadiums and offices and airports. They've got some really snazzy room controllers with RS-232, IR, audio amplification. They just make really nice products, built for another apocalypse if that comes after the Luxol one.
So SY Electronics and Luxol, and you'll be good to go.
Yeah, just stick with those, and No, we didn't spend a lot of time with them this year on the show, but they're a company that are active on using #LiveInstall, and their room controllers are really nice.
Very cool. Well, I know we could probably talk about dozens of more products and talk about the show floor for a solid hour, but we're running tight on time here, and I want to zoom out to close our conversation and talk about a couple of questions from a little bit more of a high level. And the first one I want to ask you is, if you had to pick, and I want to sort of hold your feet to the fire here and make you pick one, maybe two, maybe I'll let you get away with two if they're very good, but what was sort of the key theme or key takeaway that you got from ISE 2016?
I think you've got to get ready for HDMI over IP. I can see that becoming a dominant method of distributing HDMI around properties, especially when you've got more than 8 screens. I also think we'll see service providers like DesignFlow, JetBuilt, IHG. And you talked about Luxol, I can see those companies integrating with each other. So you've got project integration from start to finish. That might be my forecast. I kind of read between the lines of speaking to these companies that they're all talking to each other. So I think that bodes well for our businesses that are, from start to finish, we're going to have integration, not just with the technical side, but the design and management as well.
Yeah, and those are two great themes, so I'll definitely let you get away with two there. I think that HDMI over IP is a very important trend to watch, and I would agree with you. I think it's one that we need to start getting prepared for, particularly in projects like you alluded to, where there's maybe more than 8 displays, and it does become a more cost-effective solution at that point. And also something that I feel like doesn't get talked about enough when we talk about HDMI over IP is how great it can be for a retrofit environment where maybe the infrastructure isn't completely centralized, but we still want to find a way to do a central distribution type of system. And I've had to use Just Add Power in environments like that, and being able to just take HDMI, put it up on the network, convert it into packets, and then route it around through the network infrastructure is a very powerful tool. And I think that, to your point, one that we definitely need to keep an eye on. Regarding the software, I would agree. I think the industry, for some time now, we've heard people clamoring that they just want that one piece of software that's going to do everything. And frankly, I don't think that's going to exist anytime soon. And honestly, I don't know if it's something people say that they want it, but I don't know if they really would, because I think any piece of software that big would really force us into a box in the terms of how we run our business. And I think that everybody has their own ways of doing things. And I think, honestly, the better solution is purpose-built pieces of software that do their own thing and do it very well, but are run by companies that understand the value of opening up the data, maybe putting out APIs, working with other software providers to move that data around, so we're not doing double, triple, quadruple data entry every time we get a new project. And so I think those are two great themes, and I'm glad that you pointed them out. One of the other questions that I wanted to ask you is, ISE is a very big travel for integrators and home technology professionals here in the States, and even for a lot of integrators overseas. It's not always the easiest thing to make that trip, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts and talk me into it, Chris. Is ISE worth the travel?
ISE is the big one. It's the one to go to now. You've got to be seen at it. You've got to see the products that are launched there more than any other show. That's where brands are using it as the platform for new products. It's got that mix of residential and commercial. It's in a city with great transport links. You can get to it quite easily from anywhere in the globe. I spoke to installers from South Africa, Scandinavia, the Far East, Middle East, and the US. So it's a global show, combining all the well-known brands, but it's also opens your eyes to brands you've not seen, brands from other parts of the world, which I think that's important. And we have to recognize what's dominant in our own regions. It's a different market somewhere else, and you always find a product that's unknown at ISE in your region.
That's great. You talked me into it. Now I just have to convince my wife.
It's a business trip. It's work. It's work. You're just going to work.
You got it. Yeah. You got it. So the last, probably the most important question that we need to ask in order to close the show is, how were the monkey nuts?
Oh, they were great. As usual, we got good beer, good monkey nuts. We had great company for the evening. We had a lot of UK-based installers. We had some new faces. 2 installers turned up for the beer and monkey nuts, introduced themselves as digitalized UK-based business. They had heard about Live Install through the HomeTech podcast.
Oh, great. Awesome.
Of which I thought was really cool. They said, we've not really got involved on social media, but we heard you mentioning ISE and Live Install on the podcast. So we thought we'd
So they joined you for monkey nuts. That's awesome.
Yeah, that was great. That's the spirit. Yeah. That's the spirit of Live Install there in a nutshell.
Yeah, absolutely. Getting people together and just having fun and over some monkey nuts. Right. You can't go wrong. I understand there was another kind of a big name in the industry that joined you.
Yeah, and this follows on from social media activity and speaking to him last year. We had Chuck Espinoza at Mad Sound Guy on Twitter, Infocom lead instructor, and was heavily involved at ISE doing training. Also a fellow podcaster like yourself, on various podcasts, specializing in commercial AV. He joined us. He got involved. He had some good conversations with the UK-based installers, understanding our market in comparison to his. I think he enjoyed it. We've spoken since the gathering, and he's already planning next year's trip to Amsterdam.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to come on here and join us. I know that the time zones can be difficult, so we really do appreciate it, and we've enjoyed getting your take on ISE, and really does sound like a great show, and definitely one that I hope to get to, if not next year, in the next couple of years. I think, to your point, very international show. It really has become arguably the show to go to, and so really appreciate you going out there, taking some notes for us, and coming back and sharing your thoughts.
No, it was great. I'm glad to have had the opportunity to speak to your audience about the show.
All right, great, Chris. Well, we look forward to chatting with you again soon. We'll be sure to get you back on for an update here, not too long, and touch base and see what's going on in the UK. So thanks again for joining us.
Thanks, Jason. Take care.
All right, you too.